I spent years paying my parents' bills, fixing their house, and making sure they were comfortable. But when I accidentally found their will, I realized they'd planned to leave me with nothing. Everything, the house, the savings, was for my lazy brother who never worked a day in his life. My name's Arjun, and any lingering doubts about my place in my family vanished the day I stumbled across the will. It wasn't a grand revelation with my parents sitting me down to break the news. Instead, it hit me by pure chance, a twist of fate that left me reeling. A few months back, I was at their place, the same house I'd been helping keep afloat for years. From covering the mortgage to picking up groceries and fixing broken things, I was the one holding it all together. Meanwhile, my brother Vikram contributed nothing. Absolutely nothing. No job, no effort, just coasting through life, expecting handouts. And my parents? They seemed perfectly fine enabling him. That day, I was sorting through some paperwork for my dad, who, as usual, couldn't be bothered to deal with it himself. He'd asked me to organize a pile of legal and financial documents, and I didn't think much of it until I spotted a folder labeled Estate Plan and Final Will. I'm not one to pry, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I'd been the one ensuring they had a home to live in. It didn't seem unreasonable to peek at their plans for the future. When I opened it, my heart sank. The words on the page hit like a punch to the gut. Everything, the house, their savings, their assets, was left to Vikram. Not a single mention of me, except for some vague line about loving both sons equally. Equal? Hardly. They'd ensured their favored son would get it all, while the one keeping their lives together was left with nothing. I felt like an idiot. For years, I'd gone out of my way to support them, paying bills, making sure they never went hungry, while they quietly planned a future where I got zero. And Vikram? He wasn't just lazy, he was entitled. He never lifted a finger, never chipped in a penny, yet somehow convinced them he deserved everything. Maybe because he was younger, maybe because they'd always coddled him, or maybe he knew exactly how to play them. Whatever the reason, their choice was clear. My hands trembled with a mix of anger and hurt as I stared at the document. How long had they been planning this? Did they always see me as their personal bank with no reward? Did they even value what I'd done? I don't know how long I sat there, lost in thought, but eventually my dad noticed I wasn't moving. "Arjun, what's taking so long?" he called, stepping back into the room. I didn't bother hiding the will. I held it up and locked eyes with him. "So this is how it works," I said, my voice steady but cold. "Everything to Vikram? After all I've done?" His face paled briefly, but then he sighed, like I was overreacting. "It's not what you think, Arjun," he said. "Really?" I shot back, my voice rising. "Because it looks pretty damn obvious to me. I've been paying your mortgage, buying groceries, fixing the house, while Vikram does nothing, and you still think he's the only one who matters." Dad shifted uncomfortably but didn't explain. Instead, he mumbled, "It's complicated." That was it. No apology, no real answer. Just a flimsy excuse and a look like he expected me to let it go and keep playing my role as their financial lifeline. I could have stormed out right then, but I needed to hear it from both of them. I called for my mom. When she walked in and saw the will in my hands, she looked guilty, but her words made my blood boil. "Arjun, sweetheart," she said softly, like she was doing me a favor. "You don't need the inheritance. You've got a good job. You're self-sufficient. Vikram, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's okay." That was the moment something inside me broke. They weren't even pretending otherwise. They knew exactly what they were doing and thought it was fair. They'd spent years enabling Vikram's laziness, and now they were rewarding it by giving him everything while brushing me off like an afterthought. I took a deep breath, set the will on the table, and said, "Got it. Good to know where I stand." My voice was calm, almost too calm. Then I turned and left, ignoring their calls as I slammed the door behind me. They'd made their choice. Now it was my turn. Didn't go back to their house after that. No calls, no check-ins. For the first time in years, I let them deal with their own problems. Need something fixed? Figure it out. Need groceries? Find a way. And that mortgage payment? Not my problem anymore. The silence lasted about 2 weeks. At first, they probably thought I was just sulking and would come crawling back. Maybe they expected me to apologize for daring to question them. But as the days passed with no word from me and, more importantly, no money, their tone shifted. One afternoon, my phone pinged with a text from Dad. "Property taxes are due." That was it. No, "How are you?" No, "Sorry for what happened." No, "We appreciate all you've done." Just a blunt demand, like I was still their personal ATM. I stared at the message, almost amused by their predictability. They really thought they could just ask for cash like nothing had changed. That I'd keep bailing them out after they made it clear I was expendable? I replied, I'm sure Vikram can cover it since the house is his. Within minutes, my mom called. I let it ring. Then came her text. Arjun, please don't act like this. We need to talk. Oh, now they wanted to talk? Now that their bills were piling up and reality was hitting them? I waited an hour before responding. Nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Live with it. I thought that would end it for the day. I'd been crystal clear, and I felt no guilt. But then Vikram decided to weigh in. His text came late that evening, and the second I saw his name, I knew it'd be infuriating. Sure enough, it was pure entitlement. Bro, why are you being so dramatic? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like always, he wrote. I nearly laughed. Not a big deal? He was acting like I had no right to be upset. I shot back. Nah, you've got this. Since you're the favorite and all, he replied. Seriously? You're mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money. Oh, now it was just money? Now that it was his to inherit, it didn't matter? The hypocrisy was staggering. I texted, then you won't mind using some of that money for the mortgage, right? Silence. A few minutes later, Mom texted again, going full guilt trip mode. Arjun, we're your parents. Family looks out for each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're abandoning us? I had to stop myself from hurling my phone. Abandoning them? I'd spent years ensuring they never struggled, while they babied Vikram and rewarded his laziness. And now that they faced the consequences, I was the villain? I wasn't buying it. I replied, you made it clear I wasn't family when you left me out of the will. Let Vikram take care of you. I could picture Mom gasping, playing the victim as always. Then Dad texted, and this one pushed me over the edge. We're not asking for much. Just enough for the mortgage for a few months until we sort things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish? The word made my blood boil. I'd been bailing them out for years, sacrificing my own time, money, and energy. I'd done everything a good son should, and they repaid me by cutting me out. Now, when I finally stood up for myself, I was selfish? I typed, no, I'm done. Then I turned off my phone. They'd made their choice, and they'd have to deal with it. The silence lasted a day. I knew they wouldn't give up easily, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. The next morning, I woke to a notification, a bank transfer request from Mom. I stared in disbelief. She'd sent a request for $3,500, the exact amount for their overdue mortgage. No message, no explanation, just a shameless demand. They weren't even asking anymore. They assumed I'd cave. I declined it instantly. Within minutes, Mom called. I let it ring. Then her text. Arjun, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I took my time replying. Because it's not my responsibility. Ask Vikram. Another call. I declined it. Another text. We'll lose the house if you don't help. Oh, now it was a crisis. After years of treating me like a wallet, they were finally facing consequences. I replied, maybe you should have thought of that before deciding I didn't matter. Then Dad texted, you're really going to let your parents become homeless? I laughed out loud. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost comical. They weren't destitute. They just didn't want to touch their savings because they were used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, Vikram texted, dude, just send the money. You're making this bigger than it is. I clenched my jaw. This entitled jerk thought he could lecture me? I replied, you mean the money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? His response was quick. You know I don't have that kind of cash. Oh, so now it was about affordability? He was fine with me emptying my accounts, but when it was his turn, he had nothing? I texted, guess you better figure it out, bro. You're the one they picked. No reply. I went to bed feeling strangely calm, like I'd finally broken free from years of being used. But the next day, things escalated. I was at work when my apartment's front desk called. Hey, Arjun, your parents are here? I nearly dropped my phone. What? I asked. The receptionist hesitated. They say it's an emergency and you're not answering their calls. My jaw dropped. They showed up at my apartment because I stopped paying their bills? I took a deep breath. Don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was a pause. They're being kind of insistent. I gritted my teeth. I don't care. They can leave. I hung up and got a text from Mom. We're downstairs. Open the door. No question. Just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text. Arjun, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. They weren't backing down. Fine. I'd make sure they never forgot this lesson. I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs, my anger simmering. I wasn't nervous. I was livid. The nerve of them showing up uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal bank. No call, no apology. Just an ambush. They thought they could bully me into giving in like I was still a kid. I opened the door, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and of course Vikram, standing together like they were staging an intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her classic, disappointed mom look ready to go. Dad stood rigid, hands in his pockets, looking annoyed and entitled, like he couldn't believe he had to do this in person. And Vikram? The leech looked bored, like this was just a minor hassle for him, not the mess he'd caused. The second Mom saw me, she went dramatic. Arjun, finally. We need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Number, you need to leave. She blinked, like she couldn't process my words. Excuse me? You heard me, I said, my voice firm but calm. You don't get to show up at my home demanding money. That's crazy. Dad scoffed. You're really going to let us lose the house over some petty grudge? I let out a cold laugh. Petty grudge? You mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough for your will? That grudge. Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I'd wounded her. Arjun, that's not fair. We did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean best for Vikram. Just admit it. Silence. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. Vikram, who'd been quiet, finally spoke. Look, man, I don't even want to be here. I didn't ask for anything. I turned on him, letting loose. No, you just take whatever's handed to you. You're 28, Vikram. Get a job. His face flushed. What the hell, man? I stepped closer. You heard me? Want to inherit the house? Act like a homeowner? Want to be the golden boy? Pay their damn bills? I'm done being your bank. Vikram looked away, suddenly fascinated by the ground. Mom recalibrated her guilt trip. Arjun, he's your brother. I nodded. Yeah, and I've supported him longer than you have. Dad's face darkened. You're being selfish. I laughed. A real bitter laugh. That's rich coming from you. You two decided Vikram deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And now that you're paying the price, you're trying to guilt me into fixing it. Not happening. Mom's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept being betrayed and keep paying your bills? That's what you wanted. Dad stepped forward, trying to intimidate me like when I was a kid. Arjun, we raised you, we fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I met his gaze. I already did, for years, and you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lip quivered. We thought you'd understand. I shook my head. Oh, I understand. I was never family to you. Just a paycheck. Silence again. A thick, undeniable silence. I turned to Vikram, who was still avoiding eye contact. And you, what's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to contribute, but you didn't, because you knew they'd cover you. And when they're gone, you expected me to step in, right? Vikram snapped. What do you want me to say? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just took. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Arjun, we're family. Family looks out for each other. I stared at her for a long moment before saying, Exactly. So why didn't you look out for me? She froze. No words, no comeback, nothing. Exhaled, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked inside, shutting the door. Before I reached my couch, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Wow, after all we've done for you, you're really abandoning us? I smirked, typing back, No, you abandoned me. I'm just accepting it. And with that, I was done. If you were in my place, what would you have done? How did this story make you feel? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more crazy Reddit drama.